Okay, and one quick question, because since my parents are Cuban, from Cuba, and they survived and they lived with Fidel Castro's dictatorship, what do you think, and I want to ask what's your position and what do you think the parliament's position is with Fidel Castro's dictatorship?
It's not really an issue today. We are facing that many problems all over the world. We have the crisis between the Russian and the Ukraine country. We have very high inflation. We have to act against poverty, and wherever dictatorship is, we have to fight against it. And especially Cuba, where Fidel Castro was one of the dictators of Cuba. Of course, that was a very dark period of Cuba, and I think it's also a long way for Cuba to go to modern democracy, but it's up to you to develop this.
Well, I think that right now, one of the most important problems would be Cuba, because of Cuba, you can see how it has expanded throughout the whole world. Cuba is cancer of communism. Because of Cuba, there's now communism in Venezuela, in Nicaragua, now in China, and going now to Mexico, to Brazil, to Colombia. And it's going with the best and the worst problem is that it's going to Europe. And I think that that's why we have to stop Cuba, because look, even though, and I think that Fidel Castro was one of the worst dictatorships, and that it is still there because they have just kept it going in the same family blood. Because everyone there is one whole family, and they will not leave Cuba until they see that the Cuban people and that they have and help from other places, from Europe, from America. If they don't see that, then they will never leave. And that's why I think that's very important to help out Cuba, but not certainly with money, not with medicine, not with food, not with vaccines, no, but with military support. Because if we do that, if we show that, there's another way that that the dictatorship in Cuba would react.
You have to know that I'm a member of the European House of Parliament, but I'm an Austrian, and we as Austrians have the neutrality as a very, very basic principle in our constitution. So that means we will not take part in any war situation.
Of course, no one will it's not, I'm not saying as a war, I'm saying as saying, look, Cuba, if you keep doing this, then we will take our people and ask for their freedom. And ask to the Cuban people to, if we go out, you go out too. That's what I think that it has to have, and that support from the people of Austria, from the people of other places in other countries, because Cuba, like I'm saying, is cancer communism cancer. So it will span out until it has complete control.
Yes and no, so maybe you're right there, but my task is to focus on that what is going on in Austria, is to focus on that what is going on in Europe, and I cannot solve all the problems in the world. And we have communism in Cuba, you mentioned it, we have communism in China, we have communism in other countries, and it's
South
not
Korea.
Task, yes, of course, it's not task of the Austrians to act against them. We focus on our country, we focus on our neighbor countries, we focus on Europe, and we try to establish partnerships, friendships, for example, with the United States, with the Republicans in the United States, but we take not part in things like that, acting against Cuba, acting against China, something like that. We are neutral. That's a principle and a tradition of my country.